Turn back the clock to tens of millions of years ago. The heat of carbon filled the atmosphere, and the surface of Earth was covered with seawater. Plankton floated in that water and grew, consuming the carbon. When these living lumps of carbon died, they piled up on the ocean floor and went through a process of sedimentation. Heat and pressure were applied to the sediments, creating a fossil fuel that we call petroleum. Petroleum has given humankind a new type of civilization. In 1954, people succeeded in inventing a new type of material from petroleum called styrofoam. In the workplace, on the streets, even at home, styrofoam is used everywhere. Even in the ocean. Is styrofoam really a gift for humankind from petroleum? What if we are in the very final chapter of an environmental disaster caused by petroleum? A startup company in New York. Two college students started this company with an innovative idea for a new invention. Now they've become quite famous as a green technology company. They have received $100 million as government funding and many environmental awards from around the world. What is their invention that has got the world's attention? After 2 years of research and development, they have come up with something truly amazing. It will not only save our environment, but is practical to use.
And Ecovative Design is just such a success story. It was a couple of college students who wanted to generate an alternative to polystyrene foam because it was petroleum-based, it never degraded, and in the lab they developed this application which then became commercially viable.
Light and durable, this invention can be made to any form or shape, just like styrofoam. But there is one huge difference. Unlike styrofoam that does not rot, it is 100% biodegradable. The secret to this technology lies in mushrooms, of all things.
We take mushrooms and agricultural waste and we grow them together into molded shapes to replace things like styrofoam packaging, beach toys, or flotation devices in the ocean.
Making styrofoam with mushrooms is actually quite simple. Agricultural waste, such as grain husks, is sterilized and mixed with mushroom mycelium. The mixture is placed inside a mold. After 72 hours, mushroom styrofoam is made. Actually, it would be more accurate to say mushroom styrofoam is cultivated. Can this invention really solve the catastrophic flaw of the existing styrofoam?
The issue is what happens after you're done using it. So that could be when your buoy breaks up in the ocean, when chunks fall off. The issue is it's fundamentally incompatible with our planet, right? It never goes away. It may break into smaller and smaller pieces. If you walk along any beach in the world, you see little pellets of styrofoam on the beach.
Even on this beautiful beach, you will find styrofoam. At Santa Monica Beach in Los Angeles, regular cleanups are carried out by a U.S. environmental group. Since the last cleanup a month ago, the beach has already been taken by ocean trash. Even just after a few minutes, they were finding enough to fill the garbage bags. Most of the trash was styrofoam.
It's one of the top 3 items we find. Styrofoam is during our beach cleanups, and once it gets out into the ocean, it's really expensive to clean up. There's not really a way to clean it up. And so it's very important from Heal the Bay's perspective that we get Styrofoam out of our litter stream and out of the oceans.
There is nowhere that Styrofoam trash can't go. The sight out here is disastrous, and unfortunately it is a common sight along the west coast of the Japanese island Tsushima. Since long ago, Styrofoam trash has been a huge problem on Tsushima. Getting rid of the Styrofoam trash costs a lot of money.
22年、23年度に大掛かりに漂着ゴミを回収しました。回収実績ですけども、約4割から5割の間が発泡スチロールということになっております。その当時、一粒米の袋で1万4000袋のゴミが回収されております。22年から23年にかけまして8億円の経費を費やしております。
Silently, but quickly, the white demon is eating away at the ocean. Styrofoam was invented to make our lives more convenient, but now it is threatening our ocean. No country is safe from the invasion of Styrofoam trash.
We also use Styrofoam buoy. So after typhoon, lots of Styrofoam buoy just come to the beach.
There are certain areas where Styrofoam is very dominant.
This is really happening everywhere. In the Philippines, there's more.
More and more animals are dying from our waste in the ocean. And Styrofoam is one of the biggest problems.
The time is July, and this beach will soon be open for its summer visitors. But every year there are unwanted visitors who arrive before them. Styrofoam trash washes up on its shore endlessly. It washes up faster than the people can clean it up. It is a real battle.
우리가 다 치우서는 온 거야. 떠오르는 양이 방금 봤지만 그것만 있는 거 아니고 수시로 떨어지기 때문에 지금 이거는 일부이고 너무 많습니다. 그 바람 쪽에 불고 이런 것 때문에 너무 많아요. 골치 아파요.
Maemuldo is a small island near Tongyong, 20 kilometers off the southern coast of Korea. The main livelihood of the island is natural seaweed, gathered by women divers and tourist services. Mongdol Beach is one of the main attractions of this island. It is a snug little beach surrounded by cliffs. But there is something that stands out among the shiny black pebbles. There are pieces of Styrofoam that have been broken down into grains as fine as sand. What's more devastating is that these Styrofoam grains get buried in the ground.
말 못합니다. 북동부만 불면은 전국 쓰레기가 우리 매물도 이 해수욕장에 다 들어옵니다. 이 마을 주민들이 일주일마다 거의 청소를 하는데 도저히 감당을 못 해가지고.
우리는 받을 때는 네 수영장 있다고 받는다 아닙니까? 그럼 소임들 와가지고 이래놓고 소임 받는다고 오히려 집 민박 부모님 사람들한테 막 써내고 그래요. 그럼 우리가 피해는 우리가 서로씩 안고 가지.
The southern coast is known for its pristine waters and beaches. As if mocking such a reputation, the ocean trash has reached islands that even men have not been able to reach. Tidal currents and winds are perfect vehicles for ocean trash to get around. With strong northeasterly winds blowing, ocean trash moves particularly fast in winter, and Styrofoam makes up the largest part of the ocean trash.
그리고 또 스티로폼이나 이런 부분들은 이제 둥둥 떠다니기 때문에 주로 해안가에 많이 또 안착을 하고요. 스티로폼이나 이제 이런 플라스틱류들이 예년에 비해서 많이 발생한다고 볼 수가 있겠습니다. 현실적으로.
우리나라 해양 쓰레기 문제를 종합적으로 검토를 해보고 조사를 해봤을 때 스티로폼 해양 쓰레기 문제가 가장 심각하다고 저희가 판단을 했습니다.
Just how serious is styrofoam pollution on Korean beaches? Last May, an investigation on ocean trash was carried out in Yeosu, South Jeolla Province. The amount, types, and causes of the collected ocean trash were analyzed. Since 2008, ocean trash is monitored on all the shores of Korea. It is a comprehensive survey in which data is gathered from 20 locations around the country every 2 months.
조사된 쓰레기의 47.9%, 그러니까 50% 가까이가 플라스틱 쓰레기고 그 다음에 두 번째를 차지하는 게 스티로폼입니다. 스티로폼이 18% 정도를 차지하고 있습니다.
단일 아이템으로, 단일 항목으로 가장 많은 양을 차지하고 있는 것이 스티로폼 부자 조각들입니다.
Looking at the monitored ocean trash results from 2008 to 2012, styrofoam represents the second largest part of the trash after plastic. By volume, it is at the top. It makes up 33% of the total ocean trash. Styrofoam buoys are the most commonly found ocean trash in Korea. Researchers also point to styrofoam buoys used on fish farms as a cause of ocean pollution. The white styrofoam buoys can be seen all around the coast of Korea. These styrofoam lumps eventually turn into styrofoam trash, villains of the ocean.
우리나라는 이제 양식업에 워낙 부력을 유지하기 위해서 스티로폼 부자를 워낙 많이 쓰다 보니까 거기서 많이 떨어져 나오게 되는 것이고요.
That the styrofoam is a one-way product. So they put the buoy, and when the buoy basically starts to disintegrate, they just replace it with a new one and let the old one go.
그래서 최근에 거기에 대한 어떤 여러 가지 그 문제점이 어느 정도 지적되고 있고 특히 이제 환경의 부담이 많이 가중되고 있는 그런 실정입니다.
The use of styrofoam buoys has increased rapidly with the development of underwater farming. The method requires ropes with seeds or eggs attached to be sunk into the water, and styrofoam buoys play a crucial role. In particular, they are used extensively on the oyster farms on the southern coast, even under the water. Most of the ocean is invisible to us. Just what is happening to our oceans? With help from Korea Institute of Ocean Science and Technology, ocean trash from the shores of Gyeonggi on the southern coast of Korea was analyzed. Because styrofoam floats on water, a specimen was taken from the top 20 centimeters from the water's surface.
조그만 스티로폼 조각들이 많이 있네요.
예, 큰 것만 있는 게 아니라 보면 조그만 거 보이시죠?
네.
예. 아까 좀 동그랗게 되는 게 일반적인 사이즈로 잘라진 거고 거기서 이제 더 조그맣게 잘라.
여기 그 부위들이 많기 때문에 거의 다 스트라이폼이거든요. 그러니까 스트라이폼이 지금 파도나 영향에 의해서 많이 깨져서 습자가 많이 떠있는 상태죠 지금.
If all these styrofoam grains came from buoys, then just how many fish farm buoys are there in Korea? We visited the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries to get an accurate picture of the situation.
2007년도에 우리가 조사한 기록이 한 번 있었는데요. 그때 한 스티로폼 부표를 1,600만 개 정도로 이렇게 추산을 했더라고요. 현재는 그 자료가 있고.
The amount of styrofoam buoy usage is based on manufactured quantities of major companies. In 2010, about 17 million styrofoam buoys were used in domestic fish farms. Of that number, about 40% was used by oyster farms. However, this number is not absolutely accurate. If you add the manufactured quantity of smaller companies and additional installations each year, the actual amount could be a lot more.
스티로폼 부자들이 그 양식용에 쓰는 것들이 한 90% 쓰고 있고요. 그 다음에 이제 수산물 양식장에 부표로 쓰고 있는 대형 부자, 이것들이 한 10% 쓰거든요. 그렇게 계산하면 한 200만 개 정도가 하루 1년에 아마 그 바다에 깔린다고 봐야겠죠.
Styrofoam trash just keeps increasing as people use more of the styrofoam buoys. To solve this problem, the government has introduced styrofoam recycling facilities. Discarded styrofoam buoys are collected and broken into small pieces. Then they are washed, dried, and applied with heat to reduce their volume by tens of times. The ingots that you get from this process are reused to make plastic products. It is an innovative solution, but by no means perfect.
재활용을 하기 위해서는 요거 인력으로 일일이 다 손질을 해야 되는데 인력 투입 대비해 가지고 재활용하는 효율이 떨어지다 보니까는 회수되는 전체 양 대비해 가지고 한 20-30% 정도는 이제 폐기대 이상으로 이렇게 나가는 그런 실정입니다.
Every year, about 70% of the discarded styrofoam is recycled in Korea. The rate is much lower for styrofoam buoys, about 20%. Since a manufacturer responsibility recycling policy went into effect in 2003, the recycling rate is slowly increasing, but it still has a long way to go. But there is more to the problem. There is styrofoam trash that drifts around the ocean like ghosts. It is scattered expansively, and the small pieces are difficult to collect due to lack of human resources and funding.
감염기까지 들어오기 위해서는 그 스티로폼 부자를 많이 수거를 해야 되는데 수거하는 비용이 굉장히 많이 듭니다. 그래서 현재 사용하고 있는 양이 1헥타당 굴 양식의 경우에는 1,600개 정도의 부자가 사용이 됩니다. 그런데 지금 그것이 회수되는 양은 10% 정도 안 됩니다. 그럼 90% 정도가 바다로 그냥 버려지는 거죠.
Most of the styrofoam trash covering the coasts of Tsushima is discarded buoys from fish farms. They are unsightly, but easier to clean up. The real troublemakers are styrofoam grains. They have been broken down into tiny pieces by currents, winds, and weathering. They are much lighter and travel far, making it hard to retrieve them.
漂着ゴミの回収をするにあたってはやっぱりこういった小さいところまでは回収できていないのが現状ですので、こういった手で取れるこのぐらいのサイズあたりを回収していると。その分の汚染については全くないということはないと思います。だからこの発泡が環境にどれだけ影響があるかというのをですね、今後はちょっと調べていかなければいけないのかなというふうに思ってます。
Nyongsashimni Beach is made up of fine sand that stretches on for 4 kilometers. With more than 1 million visitors every year, it is one of the most popular spots on the southern coast of Korea. However, it is also suffering from styrofoam waste. Regular beach cleanups and monitoring are carried out, but it's far from enough.
군에서 명사심리라는 이미지 때문에 청소를 하고 있습니다. 그럼에도 불구하고 그 쓰레기를 주울 때 큰 것만 주워내는 그런 단점으로 알갱이가 되어 있는 스티로폼은 배제되고 있다는 거.
The styrofoam grains from the sea quickly get into the beach. The pine forest nearby is full of styrofoam grains too. There is nobody to clean them up, so the situation just gets worse. It is impossible to even comprehend how quickly the styrofoam grains are increasing.
One of the big problems with styrofoam is that it very easily fragments into very small pieces, which is different from other plastics like high density plastics.
스티로폼 부자가 하나가 한 62리터 정도가 표준 부자인데 저희가 그 크기를 계산해 보면 부자 하나에서 완벽하게 다 알갱이로 쪼개졌다고 계산해 보면 대략 한 700만 개 이상의 조각 알갱이로 떨어져 나옵니다.
스티로폼 해양 쓰레기 문제는 부서져서 100% 해소할 수 없다는 거. 쪼개지고 흩어진 것들은 지금 바다에 영원히 우리가 수거할 수 없는 상태로 바다에 계속 떠다니게 되는 거죠.
How small can a styrofoam piece break down to? The Korea Institute of Ocean Science and Technology carried out an experiment. A weathering test was done by creating an environment similar to nature. 40 styrofoam grains were put in a glass jar with sand, and friction was created by moving them for 30 days. How did the styrofoam grains change? The result seen through a microscope was truly shocking.
40개 정도를 집어넣고 30일을 같이 이제 마모 실험을 했는데 한 50만 개 정도 조각. 근데 놀라운 사실은 그 조각이 실제 들어가니 EPS 알갱이는 약 2.5에서 한 3mm 정도 수준인데요. 생긴 이 입자는 수 마이크로미터에서 심하게는 이제 나노 사이즈까지 쪼개지는 것을 저희가 이제 전자매경으로도 확인을 했습니다.
The grains of styrofoam had broken into pieces too small to be seen with the eye. If they are broken into micro and nano-sized pieces, then it is almost impossible to retrieve them.
오히려 눈에 보이면 쉬울 수도 있어요. 근데 눈에 안 보이기 시작하면 더 어려워진다는 거죠. 그 어려워지는 정도가 조금이 아니라는 거죠. 그건 역시 약간 지수함수적으로 어려워질 수도 있습니다. 처리하는 비용이나 노력이나 영양조차.
A research lab in the National Defense Academy of Japan. Professor Haruyuki Yamaguchi has been studying the toxicity of ocean trash around Japan, Guam, and Hawaii for the last 15 years. Styrofoam is at the center of his research.
特に発泡スチロールの場合はその吸着性が多孔性なので非常に空撃が多い物質なので非常にそういう有害物を吸着する性質が非常に高いという、そしてそれがやはり海を流れてさらにそれが破砕して細かくなってさらに陸に上がって陸に漂着してまたさらに細かくなったりするとですね、それが海の汚れを海岸に運んでいく役割をする。
Made by being blown up like popcorn, styrofoam is 98% made up of air. The problem is that harmful substances can easily get into the holes. Upon analysis, heavy metal harmful to organisms has been found in most styrofoam.
トータル的には結構マンガンとか亜鉛だとか銅だとかそういうものが鉛をかなり吸着してくるのもありますけれども、そういう有害な化学物質が主に検出されます。ヤドカリとかそういうのを食べたりしているということがよく言われてます。その発泡スチロールを食べたりなんかしている、そういうことがよくありますので、そういうものが生物にも影響を与えていく可能性がある。
This is the real face of styrofoam that we haven't been able to see. In reality, styrofoam is far from being environmentally friendly right from its manufacturing process. It is a high polymer chemical product made from polystyrene. Polystyrene is made from petroleum, then hydrocarbon gas is pumped into it. Moreover, this material contains toxic substances.
스티로폼에 쓰이는 스타일엔 이제 모노머라고 영어로 그렇게 표현하면 이제 단량체가 되는데, 모노머, 이제 스타일엔 다이머도 사실은 내분비계 장애물질로 분류돼 있습니다.
Styrofoam is expanded polystyrene. Polystyrene is a problematic plastic to begin with because the styrene monomer is toxic. It's carcinogenic, mutagenic. It's a problem.
Styrofoam is no longer the fantastic invention that people marveled at. It is a ticking time bomb. The styrofoam buoys that have taken over our seas are no exception.
바다에서 많이 쓰이는 부위에서
근데 그 난연제 성분 중에 하나인 HBCD라는 물질을 검출을 하게 됐습니다. 저희가 현재까지 분석한 부자에서는 대부분 다 검출이 되고 있고요. 이제 부자들마다의 농도 수준은 굉장히 다양하게 나오고 있습니다.
HBCD is classified as a harmful substance along with dioxin and DDT. Such substances that have high toxicity or can build up in bodies have been internationally regulated by the Stockholm Treaty. HBCD has been added to that list as of May this year.
난분해성, 두 번째 생물 축적성, 이제 세 번째가 이제 생물 독성이거든요. 기본적으로 생물 독성을 갖고 있는 물질로 보시면 되고요.
부자가 계속 바닷물에 노출이 되기 때문에 바닷물에 담궈지면은 바닷물 속으로 용출이 될 수가 있습니다. 이제 용출이 되게 되면 그 바닷물을 이제 필터를 하거나 아니면은 근처에 살거나 하는 생물에도 영향을 미칠 수가 있겠죠.
The shadows in the ocean are growing darker. The ocean is slowly dying. But perhaps styrofoam was not fit to coexist with the ocean right from the start.
ですから汚染を拡散する役割を成している可能性があるという、それがやはり海の砂だとか海水だとか植物だとかそういうものに、非常に汚染の影響を与える可能性があるということが考えられます。
The contaminated area is rapidly expanding. How does styrofoam trash and toxic substances spread so fast around the world? The answer lies in the currents. There are many currents in the ocean. The Kuroshio current that flows close to Korea goes all the way to the USA via the North Pacific current, creating a ride for styrofoam trash to follow.
So it's likely that throughout the world ocean in the water column is polluted with polystyrene. Just because a coastal operation loses some styrofoam doesn't mean it's going to stay in the coastal zone. It's going to be moving throughout the world ocean and populating the water column throughout the world oceans.
If they are ingested by organisms, then these toxic chemicals will be absorbed by these organisms and in this way basically enter the food chain. Then these toxins basically also return to humans.
All living things are interlinked with their environment. Heal the Bay is a well-known environmental group based in LA, USA. They are researching the effects of the changing ocean environment on animals and plants. They are especially interested in what happens when animals consume styrofoam.
If it gets out into the ocean, it'll break down into small pieces that don't biodegrade. They never assimilate back into nature. And marine life confuses them as food. It can be really problematic, cause lots of health problems as they ingest it because there's no room for their natural prey, as well as potentially causing death.
In 1997, a huge pile of ocean trash was discovered between the U.S. mainland and Hawaii. Captain Charles Moore of Algalita Marine Research Institute, who is at the heart of the matter, tells us a surprising story. Filter feeders like oysters and mussels can eat styrofoam as they suck in seawater.
You'll find more styrofoam closer to the coast. Yes. This offshore. This is styrofoam because this is local. This is from my own local area here. And this is styrofoam that is collected on the surface here.
Also, we can see the lots of mussels,
Yeah.
and oysters too.
So these are filtering out this water. The oyster filters out the water that has the styrofoam, and the styrofoam bit can get inside. It's not giving them any nutrition.
The mussel or oyster eating this?
Yes.
Really?
Oh yes, yes, it's been shown.
Can sea organisms really mistake styrofoam for food? An experiment was carried out using polystyrene, the substance, instead of styrofoam itself. The experiment was carried out on zooplankton, classified as copepoda, the primary consumers in the ocean food chain.
동물 플랑크톤, 여과 섭식자들을 선정한 다음에 걔네들한테 이 폴리스타를 먹여서 현미경상으로 소화기관 안에 폴리스타이렌이 섭취가 됐는지 안 됐는지를 확인하는 실험인데 지금까지는 먹는다고는 다 알려져 있었지만 실제로 그 확인한 바는 없거든요.
For the first time in the world, polystyrene was fed to zooplankton in an experiment. The result was shocking. The fluorescent material could be seen right in the center of its body. It was polystyrene. Other changes could be observed in its body too.
사이즈별로 다 섭취를 했고 생존율이 떨어지고요. 산란력도 떨어졌어요. 그런 악영향이죠.
먹어서 이제 여러 가지 영향이 관찰이 됐거든요. 그 다음 과정이 그러면 얘를 그 상위 단계 생물이 먹냐? 그건 또 하나의 화두거든요. 그럼 먹이 사슬을 통해서 올라갈 수 있다는 얘기가 됩니다.
The zooplankton that ate the polystyrene was included in another experiment. This time, a young rock bream was observed. The two were put together, and the rock bream was observed over time to see if it would eat the contaminated zooplankton.
조그만 물고기 새끼를 갖고 이제 먹이 실험을 했는데 그 먹이 생물이 먹은 그러니까 플랑크톤류가 먹은 거를 역시 어류가 먹었고 어류 체내에 그게 남아 있는 걸 확인을 했거든요.
The fluorescent substance that can be seen under the microscope is the same polystyrene that was in the zooplankton, which is the primary consumer in the food chain. Our fears had become a reality.
제일 상위 단계에 있는 그 생물 중에 하나가 인간이기 때문에요. 사실 사람한테도 간다고 보시면.
Basically, all organisms of the marine food chain can ingest this microplastics, which it is called then, and that can basically cause important harm to the marine food chain.
Food chains are a hierarchy and order that has long existed in the ecosystem. Ever since Earth was first created, this rule has not changed. The food chain with plankton at the bottom naturally binds its predators above it. And humans are at the very top of the pyramid-shaped food chain. At this rate, styrofoam might make its way onto our dining table in the near future.
그렇다 그러면 지금이라도 노력을 기울여 놔야지 미래에 엄청난 영향을 막을 수 있다는 거죠. 네. 그런 차원에서 예방적 차원의 접근이 필요한 분야가 저는 이 플라스틱 쓰레기고 특히 EPS도 그 중에 하나라고 생각합니다.
Expanded polystyrene, sometimes called styrofoam, is one of the most pernicious of all plastics used in the marine environment, and it really shouldn't be used at all.
Is there no way to stop styrofoam, the white demon of the ocean? The most urgent problem is to get rid of the styrofoam buoys that make up the largest part of styrofoam trash.
다른 어떤 해양 쓰레기 정책보다도 스티로폼 부자 문제에 가장 우선순위를 두고 시급하게 집중해야 되는 그런 문제입니다.
싼 부자를 써서 우리가 얻는 싼 수산물만 생각할 게 아니라 그것 때문에 생기는 나머지 환경 피해를 그러니까 비용에다가 집어넣으면 결국은 싼 부자가 아니라는 거죠.
이미 스티로폼 부표를 쓰면서 수거하고 재활용하는 그런 분야는 좀 2차적인 문제라고 보고 있거든요.
장기적으로는 그 부분을 사용을 억제하는 것이 당연하다고 저는 생각하고 있고
EPS 부자 사용을 좀 규제를 하고 길면서도 안전하게 사용할 수 있는 부자 개발이 이제 필요하다고 보고 있습니다.
Famous for the active volcano Sakurajima, Kagoshima Prefecture is at the southwestern tip of Kyushu in Japan. Its seaside villages are well known for fish farming. Tarumitsu village has some 600 fish farms. Yellowtail is the most common fish. They produce up to 4,000 tons a year, making this area the main producer in Japan. The buoys at Tarumitsu village caught our attention. The white styrofoam buoys were nowhere to be seen.
10年前は 普通の発泡スチロールを使ってて潰れたやつで海岸が汚れてましたけど、この状況じゃいけない、魚も食べて死にますから、とりあえずフロートを変えようということでリサイクルできるようにちょっとFRP でコーティングしたフロートに全部変えたんです。今もう 100% 沖の方はコーティングしたフロートになってます。
These buoys were developed in 1999. They are wrapped in 4mm thick fiber-reinforced plastic. Thanks to their resilient surface, they do not break easily or absorb water, giving them a long use life.
これもう7、8年前のやつです。まだ十分使えます。浮力も落ちない、使い方も使い勝手もいい、経済的にも楽なんですよね。普通の部位は壊れて小さくなっていくんですけど、コーティングされたやつは原型のままで10年、20年使えますん
で。The average use life is about 10 years, but in performance tests, they were found to be usable up to 40 years. The Takayamas have been running yellowtail fish farms for 3 generations now. They were the first to use the new buoys in Tarumitsu. They are 3 times more expensive than existing buoys, but can be used for longer. Moreover, it costs less to dispose of them after use.
あれはかけてなくなったりとかするんですけど、これはそこまで消耗しないし使えるんですよね。ずっと繰り返し割れさえしなければですね。耐久性があるんで、コスト的にも安くつくと長く使えるもんだから。で、あとはもう海が汚れないっていうのと。
The ocean is an important means of livelihood and where they live their lives. Their ocean has regained its clean waters like before, putting a smile on the faces of the people. The water is clear and blue. You cannot find styrofoam trash piles anywhere in Tarumitsu. The efforts of the villages over the last 10 years have changed the ocean.
養殖地帯というのは発泡スチロールの粒が流れてたんですけど、今それがもうないです。この地区は環境的には本当海もきれいですし、年に1回海の日っていうのがあって海岸清掃するんですけど、発泡スチロールの粒っていうのが海岸でほとんど見られなくなりました。
In Korea, there is a lot of research and studies being carried out to improve on styrofoam buoys. Korea Conformity Laboratories test and evaluate almost all the things that are used by people, such as construction materials, household goods, and medical equipment. They are also developing ways to use coated styrofoam buoys to replace existing buoys like the ones used in Tarumitsu, Japan.
그 수산과학원하고 연결을 해서 이런 그 규격을 개발하기 위한 일련의 어떤 그 작업을 하고 있는 중입니다. 현재로서는 그 EPS 부자에다가 폴리우레아라는 이러한 그 제품을 저들이 또 코팅도 해봤습니다. 그런데 그걸 코팅해 보니까 기존에 이러한 그 문제가 되는 이런 문제점들을 우리가 상당히 좀 개선할 수 있는 좋은 결과가 저들이 얻을 수가 있었습니다.
However, covering the surface of styrofoam buoys with other materials does not completely solve the problem. A more fundamental alternative is a biodegradable high polymer resin that is being developed by a Korea research lab. In a nutshell, it is biodegradable styrofoam. Unlike existing styrofoam that does not decompose for over 500 years, this material biodegrades completely. It has been applied for commercial use in some products, and buoys are being currently developed.
저희가 이 발포폼을 만들었을 때 제일 먼저 생각했던 건 그 부표, 그러니까 해양에 오랫동안 떠 있다가 자연스럽게 조각조각 나다가 완전히 물과 CO2로 분해되는 그런 환경에 전혀 문제가 될 게 없거든요.
PBAT is the material used to make environmentally friendly buoys. Like styrofoam, it is made from petroleum, but it can be completely biodegraded by microorganisms like bacteria and fungi. To make buoys out of PBAT, the small grains have to be expanded into certain forms, and research is currently underway.
지금 만들어낸 이제 비드 폼을 가지고 이제 앞으로 성형을 해서 실제적인 이제 부표를 실제 형태의 부표를 제작할 계획이고 있습니다.
Once they complete the expanding and molding technologies, biodegradable buoys will be on the market as early as next year.
스티로폼 부위 같은 경우는 생분해성 재질로서 그 대체를 함으로 인해 가지고 녹아서 없어져 버려서 추후에 환경에 영향을 주지 않도록 자연의 부하를 적게 주는 그런 재질로서 대체가 되어야 될 것으로 판단을 하고 있습니다.
Efforts are being made to revive the dying ocean. But there is one thing that we were missing. The alternatives were all based on petroleum, a fossil fuel.
石油を使っていく限りは石油に依存しているし、それから炭酸ガスのいわゆる排出量の増大にも多少つながりますんで、最近はですねバイオマスっていって自然の植物、でんぷんだとかトウモロコシをベースにして、そこから得られる化学物質を有効に利用しましょう。
Our world is filled with various styrofoam products made from petroleum. But that could soon change in the future. Ecovative invented a styrofoam alternative made from mushrooms. Their final goal is to rid the earth of all synthetic plastic, including disposable styrofoam.
So the core concept comes from an observation of seeing mycelium growing on wood chips in nature and holding them together, right? Because we bind stuff together here. So what we do to make a shape is we take and grind up an agricultural byproduct. We pasteurize it or sterilize it. Then we add mushroom roots or mycelial tissue. We combine that all together and we put it in a mold. And then over the next 72 hours, the mycelium grows through the agricultural waste and basically creates a resin which holds everything together.
Mushroom mycelium has many benefits. It holds together agricultural waste, acting like an adhesive. It grows like a web to create layers of air in between, making it float in water. Moreover, all the materials are natural and inexpensive. Mushroom foam has competitiveness when compared to existing styrofoam.
In the ocean, we've had tests where it's lasted up to a couple months. And part of our research is figuring out how do you make it last for maybe a couple years, but then still have it eventually break down. You know, the buoys we are working on now are small, but there's no fundamental limit to the size of the parts we can make. So we'd have no problem growing a buoy that was big enough for an oyster fisherman to actually stand and work on. And the great thing would be if they did lose it, if there was a storm and it went out into the sea, it would start to break into little pieces. But rather than being toxic pollutants that our fish eat, like mercury, it would actually be nutrition that would feed the ocean.
There is one thing that must be done to make mushroom foam buoys. They have to be made to withstand water for a long time. Currently, they can only be used for up to 6 months. Ecovative is researching ways to cover the buoys with natural coatings to solve this problem.
So we're trying to develop a product to replace the styrofoam buoys that are being used by fishermen, lobstermen around the world with something that's biodegradable. So we're experimenting with a couple different shapes, a couple different combinations of plant matter and fungi species to come up with the best, most buoyant replacement for styrofoam.
A special buoy was made as a result of the developing process. It is the NOAA buoy. This product is made of 8 large pieces of mushroom foam, and it is currently being used in the US as a kind of scientific buoy.
So NOAA has these CO2 sensing buoys that they put in the ocean, and they came to us actually a few years ago because they had to protect it when they pushed it into the ocean, and to protect it they were using styrofoam. And they tried to get the styrofoam back after it fell in the ocean, but sometimes pieces would actually float away. So you can imagine the folks at NOAA were very disturbed about this, and they'd been searching for alternatives.
NOAA stands for National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Located in Seattle, it is a U.S. government agency in charge of managing ocean resources and monitoring changes in climate and the environment. Lawrence studies tsunamis and ways to predict them. And to do this, he needs buoys.
We do a lot of research. We have a whole buoy array that crosses the Pacific Ocean.
Buoys with sensors attached float on the ocean to predict magnitude and direction of tsunamis. The problem is when the devices are installed at sea. The impact of the fall on the device is huge.
And at that point, we really worry. That's kind of the most dangerous point for the buoy. The buoy can submerge and sink before it pays out enough mooring line to survive. So the eco-cradle material we're using as a buoyant material for that as well. So it adds about 100 kilograms of extra buoyancy for those crucial first couple days, in addition to masking the buoy from the splash.
The buoys proved to be much better than they had anticipated. The best thing about them is that they do not have to be retrieved, as they are completely biodegradable. Lawrence is looking forward to seeing the mushroom foam developed for various uses in the future.
You know, where you're putting, you know, thousands and hundred thousands of these buoys out for various, you know, applications, be it lobster fishery or, you know, your oyster fisheries or things like that. It would just be, you know, that's where you get the real impact. And even just replacing packaging materials, as they're kind of working towards, you know, if we can reduce the amount of styrofoam we're using, it's just, yeah, it's going to be better for everybody.
Maine, on the east coast of the USA, is very famous for something. Lobsters. The fishermen are pulling them straight out of the ocean. Along with Canada, Maine is known as the largest supplier of lobsters in the world. Over 80% of lobsters consumed in the U.S. are from here.
Maine has the best lobsters in the world.
For Maine to become the home of lobsters, a lot of effort went into attaining the reputation. Wilson is one of the people putting in the effort. He is a biologist and a lobster specialist. His biggest concern is that devices used to catch lobsters are causing environmental pollution.
The lobster fishery, everything about it is in many ways connected to petroleum products. The traps are coated wire, plastic coated wire, the lines are wire, the buoys are styrofoam, and there are losses. We estimate somewhere between 5 and 10% of gear is lost each year. Some of them are lost permanently, and this is what we would call marine debris.
The buoys that mark the location of the traps are the biggest problem. To reduce ocean waste, the people have made a big decision earlier this year to use mushroom foam buoys. They are not quite satisfied with the results yet, but they are not giving up.
The initial experiment, I think, was a success in that we've got buoys that we tried on the water, but there's certainly opportunities for improvement, and so that's happy to start with the development of it and help in any ways, but there's still development to be done and challenges to meet.
We have this throwaway lifestyle and the idea that you discard things, things are cheap, you just use once and throw away. It's okay if you lose some styrofoam floats because we buy another styrofoam float and stick out there. Not that expensive, so we don't worry about it. This whole lifestyle has to change.
In 1954, styrofoam was a revolutionary material. But today, it has become a disaster. Perhaps we have been blinded by its convenience and cheap cost to lose sight of what is really important to us. It is time to get our ocean back from the clutches of styrofoam.
있습니다.